in the Christian church, probably the greatest affirmation is that Christ is risen. That's the basis of what makes us Christian. That we believe in Jesus and we believe in resurrection. But the interesting part about Christian folks is that we don't always see things the same way. For example, if you had heard Luke's description, it would sound a little bit like John's, but not exactly. Christians love to disagree, probably more than any folks I know. Now, the secret to that is that even though we disagree, we haven't quite learned how to do that in love. So that what happens is there's always some kettle brewing in practically every church around the country. Well, John has a solution to this. He thinks if we understood what it means to believe that Jesus is risen, we could work things out a lot easier. And so he gives us 3 models of discipleship. Now, these are people that have been part of Jesus' story and journey, so they're not new people, but John at Easter time wants to reintroduce those people to us. There is Mary Magdalene, Simon Peter, and the disciple that Jesus loved. Every time I read that, I wish they had done something different, because that sounds like he didn't love anybody except that one guy, and that bothers me. But anyway, the disciple whom Jesus loved. And Mary goes to the tomb and finds the stone rolled away and finds that there is no corpse in the tomb. And she does what any smart woman would do. She gets her 2 male friends to come and go back with her. And when they arrive, John takes tedious note. I don't know if you can pick up on this not having the words in front of you, but John takes tedious time to tell us that Peter and the beloved disciple are in this foot race to get to the tomb. It kind of makes you think, well, good grief, last week Peter was running away from Jesus and denying him, and this week he's running toward the tomb. And John wants us to know that Peter does not get there first. I'm not sure why that's so important to John, but he makes a big point of that. But then he tells us that the beloved disciple doesn't look in first, that Peter looks in first. So we have this play in John's words about what Peter has been and what Peter will be. And we have a kind of back and forth of his importance, his specialness. But John introduces us to these 3 people as a way of saying these could be models for discipleship. I want to start with the beloved disciple, because all through the Gospel of John, he is set as the archetype of faith. He is set as the one who will always be there. He is with Jesus' mother and Mary Magdalene and other women at the foot of the cross when Jesus dies. He is always there. Jesus looks down from the cross and commissions him to take care of his mother. He is, you have to admit, the favorite. He is the chosen one. And because he must know that he holds that status, he is always willing and always available. Now, if you were standing up here where the choir and I are, and you looked out there, you could see who the beloved disciples are in this congregation. You would know that Bill Lord has been back there at that machine forever and ever. And he tells me he's going to resign, but there's some things I doubt. But at the appropriate time, we will thank him more properly. You can look out here at Mary Ann, who has been Sunday school teacher and Bible study teacher, and always, if I call at the last minute and say, can you, she either says an immediate yes or a faith-filled maybe. So the beloved disciple sets the standard high, that discipleship is a willingness, an availability of always doing whatever it is that needs to be done. From carrying ministry to altar cloth changing to singing in the choir. The beloved disciple should be like a nun that Russ had in one of his classes one time, and he asked them to write a little script about, come up with a little saying that they would want on their gravestone. And she said, I'm available. And that got the same kind of laugh in his class as it did there. She meant, I'm willing. I can do this. I can help. I'll be available. Well, that's the beloved disciple. That's what the beloved disciple would want on his tombstone. Then after the beloved disciple, there is Mary. And as I said in the sunrise service this morning, Mary has been with Jesus ever since Jesus healed her. Now, there are all kinds of theories that float around that aren't necessarily substantiated in Scripture about just what it was that Jesus healed Mary from. But in any case, she knew that she was healed. And she has been with Jesus ever since that happened. She has been with him to hear him teach the Beatitudes. She has been with him when he has healed the bit-over woman. She has been with him when they marched triumphantly into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. She was with his mother at the foot of the cross when he died. She has been there. But Mary, for a woman in her day, did not take her place for granted. And unlike the beloved disciple, she was not a volunteer. She waited to be told. So when she is asked to go and tell, she waits for that instruction. When I read that, I'm always thinking, not only are Christians different in their theology, but they're different in their personalities. If I had been there and seen Jesus alive, I would have been trying to get to everybody I knew to tell them. But Mary waits to be given that commission, that assignment. She doesn't take it upon herself to do that. And again, if you look around the church, there are people like that here today. Now, I have been worried ever since I came here about the Easter egg hunt. Because every time I ever try to be part of an Easter egg hunt, I either end up lying to a child or I end up having one cry. Something always goes wrong. So I was really, really thankful when Bill and Jody said they would do the Easter egg hunt. But I want you to know that they made me sweat through every education committee up until the last one before they said they would do that. They're kind of like Mary. They were waiting to be asked to participate. So what people like that do is either produce people that are very timid and not sure whether it's all right to ask, or people like me who ask and ask and ask everything you can think of to ask to make sure that they feel included and are participating. And then the third model that John gives us is Simon Peter. Now, just for a moment, think back to those things that we know about Peter. When Jesus is in the boat and when Jesus is walking on the water and Simon Peter is in the boat and he realizes it's Jesus, he jumps out of the boat and is going to walk to Jesus. And he might have done that successfully, except like some of us, he began to think after he started, this might not have been my best idea. And he begins to turn into a rock instead of a believer. And I see this all the time in the life of the church. As a pastor, I am fascinated with how many go to church every Sunday Christians, I'm not necessarily talking about here, and other churches, have come to me and said, you know, I think I believe that there's a God, and I guess I believe that Jesus is his son, and you know, those scriptures seem to say he died and came back to life, and you know, I guess that stuff happened, but I just don't know if I really believe all of that. I mean, it's kind of unnatural to be raised from the dead. I mean, it's one thing to talk about the flowers blooming in springtime. That's pretty natural. But up from the grave, that's just unnatural. And I don't know if I can believe that. So if you asked me if I was a Christian, I would say a maybe Christian, or an almost Christian. John Wesley wrote a great sermon about the almost Christian. An almost Christian. But I don't know that I could say I'm a real card-carrying, baptized believer. Well, Peter will grow into his faith in the post-resurrection experiences that you will hear about through the end of the Gospels in the 50 days of Easter. But when I think about church folks, I'm concerned about those people who are almost Christian. When they come into the office to do a prayer with me, and I say, would you like to lead the prayer? Oh, no. As if somehow pastors are the only ones who have a connection to the prayer line. Or if you say to them, would you be on the leadership team of the church? And they say, you know, I'll do that behind the scenes, but don't ask me to, you know, I don't want to stand up and read the script. I'm not a public, you know. Well, the almost people are the problem with the church today, because they will almost forgive their neighbor, they will almost like their pastor, they will almost make their pledge, and they will almost volunteer to help. Almost. Easter is about new possibilities. Easter is about having your whole being transformed. Easter is about God changing you no matter how hard-headed and how stubborn you are. God sends Jesus to do a new thing. To do a new thing. And part of that new thing is to welcome everybody. The stranger in your midst, the foreigner, the outcast, the lowly. If you want to live out Easter, you've got to do the hard things that Jesus did. You've got to bear your own cross. And that may not make you popular, that may not make you lovable, but you will be an Easter child. You will be birthed into a new being. You will be birthed into being a lover of God. Once I used that term in a sermon, and a little lady came with her walker up to me and she said, I don't know that I like the idea that I'm supposed to be God's lover. And I said, well, if that's too high for you to strive, just love your neighbor. That'll be okay with God. Easter is about God doing the impossible, raising the dead. But Easter is also about God doing the impossible with each of us, about transforming us, making disciples of us, so that we can be the transformation of the world. Amen.